The Quest for Paradise. The Return to the Kingdom of Fantasy. Author Geronimo Stilton. Read by Hosea Tong Ho. I am just an ordinary mouse, but I have had some extraordinary adventures that will curl your whiskers. This story takes place in a strange and magical land called the Kingdom of Fantasy. Oh, how could I forget? I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Stilton. Geronimo Stilton. I run a newspaper, the Rodents Gazette, in a place called New Mouse City. It was a normal evening, around dinner time. I was hurrying home from work. I couldn't wait to eat the tasty cheese casserole I had made. But just then, I ran into my annoying cousin Trap. "Geronimo," he squeaked. "Have I got some exciting news for you?" "What is it?" I asked suspiciously. I'm always wary around my cousin. That's because he likes to play tricks on me. "My first news flash is tonight. I'm opening a restaurant," Traps announced. "Great idea," I said, thinking just the opposite. My cousin is an awful cook. "My second news flash is there will be a show for the grand opening. A very special mouse will attempt to beat the world record for stuffing your face by eating more than 100 plates of spaghetti," Trap continued. "Great idea," I said, thinking just the opposite. What kind of a nut would stuff his face like that? "And my third news flash is the rodent who will try to break the record is you." "Great idea," I said without thinking. Then it hit me. Bad idea, I thought. But it was too late to say out loud. I had already fainted. When I came to, Trap was busy combing my fur. "No need to thank me, cuz," he said. "I know you want to look good for the cameras." "Cameras?" I stammered. My cousin grinned. "Of course, Jerrykins. Thanks to me, thousands, no, millions, no, billions of mice all over the world will see you. I invited all the journalists, all the photographers, and all the television reporters on Mouse Island. They were very interested. Everyone wants to see you make a pig of yourself," he smirked. I felt sick, and I hadn't even taken one nibble of spaghetti. Oh, how did I get into such a mess? "But Trap, you know I have a weak stomach," I whined. "I'll never be able to do it." My cousin rolled his eyes. "Oh, don't be such a wimp, Jerrykins," he scoffed. "You love spaghetti, and my restaurant needs the publicity. You have to do it." I chewed my poor nails. I was about to scamper away when someone grabbed my tail. When I looked up, 2 violet-colored eyes were staring back at me. They belonged to my sister Thea. "What's up, little brother? Are you about to scamper?" Thea asked. I groaned. I was like a mouse caught in a maze. Then I felt a paw tugging at my sleeve. "Uncle, are you really gonna beat the world record for stuffing your face?" "That's so awesome," my nephew squeaked. I sighed. That did it. I told Trap to start his stopwatch. You see, I can never say no to my dear nephew Benjamin. Trap bought me my first plate of spaghetti. "You have 1 hour to break the world record," he announced. And so I began. The world record for stuffing your face. And this is how it went. 1 plate of spaghetti, 10 plates of spaghetti, 20 plates of spaghetti, 30 plates of spaghetti, 40 plates of spaghetti, 50 plates of spaghetti, and then 101 plates of spaghetti. By some miracle, I managed to beat the world record for stuffing your face. I would have patted myself on the back, but I was so stuffed I couldn't reach my back anymore. I rolled all the way home. When I got home, I made myself a humongous cup of chamomile tea. I felt like a fairy beach whale. After my tea, I crawled into bed. I fell into a deep sleep, but at exactly midnight, a strange sound awoke me. I sat up and grumbled. Who was singing outside my open window? Didn't they know what time it was? I was about to tell the mad singer to get lost when I noticed 2 enormous golden eyes in the dark sky. Then I smelled the scent of roses. Cheese niblets! It was the dragon of the rainbow. Do you know the dragon of the rainbow? I met him on my last adventure through the Kingdom of Fantasy. "Greetings, Sir Geronimo. I have brought a message from Blossom, the queen of the fairies, the dragon of the rainbow sang. Then he presented me with an official-looking scroll. The dragon of the rainbow is the message of the queen and the fairies. His body is covered in gold scales. He has 7 homes that are colors of the rainbow. He loves classical music and good scratch behind the ears. He sings when he speaks and is as strong as 1,000 dragons. I have to admit, I was so excited, my eyes nearly popped out of my fur. I mean, it's not every day a mouse hears from the queen of the fairies. The scroll was written in Fantasian, the language of the kingdom of fantasy. I quickly translated it. It seemed the queen needed me. I must leave at once, I squeaked, changing out of my pajamas and fluffy slippers. I hoped I sounded brave. After all, everyone in the kingdom of fantasy thought I was a fearless knight. To the rainbow. I started to climb onto the dragon's back. Then I stopped. I had to go to the bathroom. How embarrassing. How humiliating. After I returned from the bathroom and was safely settled on the dragon's back, we took off. His golden wings lifted us into the sky. My whiskers trembled. Part of me was super excited. I couldn't wait to return to the kingdom of fantasy. The other part of me was terribly afraid of heights. I wonder if the dragon had ever thought of installing a seatbelt. But I didn't think it would be polite to ask, so I took a deep breath and tried to relax. I had to admit, the dragon was an expert flyer. He glided through the night sky easily, gently flapping his wings, and his body was as soft as a pillow. After a while, I started to feel sleepy. Then the dragon of the rainbow began to sing. Rest your head, O gentle knight. Soon the day will bring its light, but for now the stars will shine, and everything will be just fine. I know it's hard to believe I could fall asleep on the back of a flying dragon, but I did. I woke up at dawn to the sound of my own snoring. Oh, how embarrassing. The sun was just beginning to rise in the sky. Cautiously, I looked down. What an amazing sight. We had reached the amazing kingdom of fantasy. There was the scary kingdom of witches, where Cackle, the queen of darkness, reigns. Then there was the kingdom of mermaids, where many dolphins and serpents lived. The gloomy kingdom of the dragons is a dry stretch of volcanic rock inhabited by fire-breathing dragons. I also had been to the funny kingdom of pixies, where you can have fun with 1,000 riddles. In the kingdom of gnomes, nature is always protected, and the freezing kingdom of giants is the home of the last of the giants. Finally, I spotted the colorful kingdom of fairies. The air smelled like roses. It was the most amazing smell in the world. There were lots of cool places in the kingdom of fairies. We passed over the Fountain of Youth, the Valley of Blue Unicorns, the House of the Sun and Moons, and the House that Sings, and the Fairy Godmother's Tower. The Dragon of the Rainbow headed for the Crystal Castle, home of Blossom, the Queen of Fairies. At this point, I was feeling proud of myself. I was way up in the air, and I hadn't had one panic attack yet. Right then, I noticed a red spot running towards us. Or was it green, blue, or yellow? I blinked. Now the spot had 4 legs, a face, and a tail. Yikes! Just thinking about panic attacks had given me one. Suddenly, the spot began to yell, "Your Excellency!" A wave of relief hit me. I wasn't crazy. I recognized that voice from anywhere. It was Boyles, the Charmeleon. We had met on my last visit to the Kingdom of Fantasy. Boyles was full of energy and full of candy. He would do anything for sugar. After we landed, the Charmeleon ran toward me, breathless. Do you remember me, your knightliness? I'm Boyles. I'm just a poor boil-covered chameleon, but I am at your service. Everyone has been waiting for you. I was surprised. Really? I squeaked. They're waiting for me. Boyles is a poor little boil-covered chameleon, who changes color to blend in with his environment. In the past, he was a spy for the trolls and for the Queen of the Witches, but after he met Geronimo, he changed his ways and helped save Blossom from an evil spell. Boils nodded so vigorously his head changed color 3 times. Oh yes, they're waiting for the valiant Sir Geronimo of Stilton to help the Queen find her most heartfelt desire. And what is that? I asked. But Boils wouldn't say. The Queen will have to fill you in on that one, Sir Geronimo, he said. It's a big, big secret. I gulped. Talk about putting pressure on a mouse. How was I, a newspaper mouse, supposed to help the Queen find her most heartfelt desire? And what could it be anyway? What would I have to travel through strange and dangerous lands? Would I have to battle evil monsters? Would I have to give up nightly bubble baths? Let's go, I told the chameleon. I was as curious as a whole litter of kittens. Boils licked his lips. He seemed to be waiting for something. You wouldn't by any chance happen to have a small candy for a poor little boil-covered chameleon? He asked. I should have known. I'm telling you, that lizard must have sugar in his veins. I found a piece of candy for Boils, but then we were off. Before long, we had reached the shimmering crystal castle. Boils announced our arrival. The door opened and we headed down a long hallway. I brushed against the crystal of the castle. It was cool and warm at the same time. It was transparent, but it also shimmered 1,000 different colors. It felt soft, and yet it felt hard. How odd. Then I looked down and saw something even stranger. Boils had become transparent. Yes, you could see right through him. Well, I guess it wasn't really that strange, considering he's a chameleon, but he sure did look funny. I tried not to laugh, but it was hard. He looks like a walking icicle. I shoved a candy into my mouth to stop me from giggling, but ended up choking on it instead. I was hacking away as we approached the Queen. How embarrassing. A string of fairies greeted us. One of them saw that I was choking and smacked me hard on the back. The piece of candy flew across the room and landed behind a crystal pillar. How humiliating. The fairies giggled. Then they sang, "Enter, Sir Geronimo." In the center of the room was a crystal throne. Blossom, the queen of the fairies, sat facing us. She was very small, with delicate skin that shone. Her wings fluttered softly on her back. A ring of braided roses adorned her head, and she wore crystal-clear shoes on her feet. She seemed young and yet wise. I bowed shyly. "Your Majesty, I have come," I squeaked. "How can I help you?" I tried to sound like a courageous knight. She smiled. Then she told me she wanted me to go on a great quest. A quest to find paradise and bring back the happiness of the heart. Okay, I agreed. But where's the heart of happiness? The Queen sighed. The map will direct you to the heart and can be found in the land of the Orgs. It is called the Map of Paradise, but be careful. The land of the Orgs is a terribly dangerous place. She warned. Holy cheese! I was scared out of my fur. If the Queen says a place is dangerous, it most likely is dangerous. But what could I do? I had promised to help, so I took a deep breath, put on my bravest face, and nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty," I said bravely. "I will return only when I have found the heart." I hoped she hadn't noticed that my paws were trembling. At that moment, a chorus of fairies began to sing. I was still feeling nervous when a small voice cried, "Your Excellency, Boils will help the great quest. I will be your guide." Good idea, I thought. I could use all the help I could get. "That makes 3 of us," I said, counting myself, Boils, and the Dragon of the Rainbow. "Let's call ourselves the Heart Finders Club." Suddenly, a chubby goose with an umbrella raced into the room. "Wait!" she screeched loudly. The goose marched up to me. "I am Goose Blubber. I am a nurse, your nightly nurse, and I must insist you take me on this trip. I can help if someone gets sick. Without me, you'll never be able to make it back alive," she predicted. I shivered. but Boils rolled his eyes. "Oh, please, Goosey Loose Lips, all of your chattering will drive Sir Geronimo mad. He's taking me." Goose Blubber pinched the chameleon's tail. "Pipe down, Greenface," she ordered. "He's going to bring me." The two began to argue. "I'll bring you, both of you," I said. "That makes 4 of us in the club." "Actually, there will be 5 of you," the Queen asked. The most beautiful of the beauties, a young girl, approached us. She was as pretty as a butterfly, and her long blonde hair looked like a golden yarn. Her almond eyes, shaded by long eyelashes, were very beautiful, but they were also as cold as ice. Her skin was snowy white, like a lily, and her eyes were small and delicate, like seashells. She was wearing a finely woven dress that billowed with her every step. Around her neck she wore a precious jewel shaped like a snowflake. This is Snowy Dawn, the Princess of the Snow, and the daughter of the Ice King. She is also known as the most beautiful of the beauties, and I have decided she will accompany you," the Queen said. I smiled at the princess. "I am honored," I squeaked. I stuck out my paw to shake her hand, but the Snowy Dawn didn't move. Instead, she looked at me silently with those cold eyes. Uh-oh. Was I supposed to not shake her hand? I felt like a fool. I coughed. Ahem. "Well, with you, that will make 5 of us in the Heartfinders Club," I stammered. Snowy just stared. I gulped. The princess was a beauty, but her icy stare was sort of creepy. Why wouldn't she say anything? Was that I appalling? I was dressed in my best suit. My teeth were brushed. Maybe she had something against fur. But I couldn't figure it out. The Queen patted Snowy on the back. "Go now," she commanded, as the Queen's words. Snowy turned suddenly and headed for the door. Behind her, a small sheet of paper fluttered to the ground. On it were written these words: "I will go." How strange, but there was no time to think about it now. We had to go. Everyone followed me out to the dragon. As we walked, Goose Blubber began chattering. "Don't take it personally," she said. "The princess never talks to anyone. In fact, she's known as the face that knows no smile, and she who speaks to no one, and the frozen heart." And after a while, I stopped listening. Goose Blubber was the complete opposite of Snowy. She never stopped talking. Just as we were leaving, a cockroach approached me excitedly. "Are you the courageous hero who is going on the great quest for the Queen of the Fairies? I wish you a good trip, and my heart will be with you. My name is Oscar Roach. Oscar told me how much he loved the Queen. I know I am only a measly insect, but I would give my life for her," he said earnestly. I was impressed. After all, it's not every day you meet an insect willing to lay his legs on the line for someone. Meanwhile, Goose Blubber was getting impatient. "Geronimo, why are you wasting your time talking to that insect? He's just a rotten bug. Nobody cares about him," she snorted. I ignored her. I was discovering that besides being loud and a chatterbox, Goose Blubber could be terribly rude. The cockroach continued, undaunted. "Oh, how I would love to go with you on the great quest, Sir Knight," he said wistfully. "I would make myself useful. I would take care of the dragon, cook delicious food, wash the dishes, and do the laundry. And at night, I would even play the violin. Music always makes everyone happy." I looked at Oscar. He seemed really like a charming bug. He was sincere and kind. "I've decided that you will come with us," I squeaked. "Welcome to the Heartfinders Club." Oscar was so excited, he looked like he was about to burst right out of his shell. Goose Blubber, on the other hand, was fuming. "We are bringing a cockroach?" She whined in my right ear. "There's no room for him." Boils whined in my left. Only the Dragon of the Rainbow was happy. He smiled at Oscar. Then he sang in a sweet voice. "The more hearts we take along, the more our club grows wise and strong. So climb aboard, let's go, let's fly into the bright, warm, rosy sky." Goose Blubber, Boils, and Boils were still soaking, so I decided to lead them in a cheer. "Hip hip, hooray for the Heartfinders Club," I squeaked. It worked. Pretty soon we were all cheering. Long live the Heartfinders Club! A ray of sunlight hit the castle, making a beautiful rainbow. Then the dragon of the rainbow set off. I settled back and tried to relax. The ride wasn't so bad once you get used to the whole flying up high thing. The wind caressed my whiskers. I closed my eyes and pretended we were heading for the Furball Islands. Have you ever been there? They have the most beautiful beaches. Suddenly, the dragon dove left. My eyes flew open. No Furball Islands for this mouse. We were headed for the land of the ogres. The ogres were friends with the evil queen of the witches. I'd met her on my last adventure of the frog friend, Scribble Hopper. It was already evening when Boils yelled, "We're here! It's the land of the ogres!" The land of the ogres was scary. I saw deserted deserts, ghostly peaks, stinky rivers, and many bad vultures. Before we knew it, an arrow zipped through the air. Thunk! It hit the dragon of the rainbow. He sang out in pain. "Help! I've been hit with a poison arrow!" Then he plummeted downward, like an airplane with no motor. Rat-munching rattlesnakes! What a disaster! I held on tight as we fell towards the ground. I stared in horror as the ground grew closer and closer. Yikes! We were headed straight for the spotty stench swamp. Something hit me in the snout. It was a crystal key. How strange. Then I remembered the fairies singing something about picking up some keys during our journey. I had no idea what they were for, but I put them in my pocket for safekeeping. 2 minutes later, we sank into the stinky, slim water. Yuck! I'd really need to hit the cleaners when I got home. I got to see thousands of witch faces peeking out from behind the shrubs. Oh, great! Goose Bubbler said, "Looks like we've arrived just in time for the great witch gathering." Boils climbed out of the muck. "Are you sure it's today, Miss Nosybody?" he muttered. "Of course I'm sure," Green-faced Goose Bubbler insisted. The two continued to argue as we swam to the shore, dragging the injured dragon of the rainbow behind us. Suddenly, we heard a scream that made everyone freeze. "Silence!" It was Cackle, the queen of the witches. She was flaming red hair and a beautiful face. She stared at one of us with her magnetic, almond-shaped eyes. One eye was black and the other was green. I shuddered. "There's only one thing you should know about Cackle. She may be beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, she is pure evil." The witches forced us to abandon the poor injured dragon. I felt terrible about it, but we had to follow the witches. "We'll be back soon," I whispered the dragon of the rainbow. "Hang in there, friend." The witches took us to a cave where rainbows of black bats were hanging. Oh, how I wish I had been curled up at home with a cup of hot cheddar. Did I mention I'm afraid of bats, witches, and that thing that goes bump in the night? As the witches began to dance, I spotted something in the dirt. It was another key. How strange. Cackle shot me a piercing look. "What brings you back, Sir Rodent?" she smirked. "Miss me?" "It's a big secret," Boils began. "We can't tell anyone about the great quest." "Be quiet, Lizard Brain," Goose Bubbler interrupted. "You shouldn't tell her we're on the quest for paradise, and that we're looking for the heart of happiness." Boils threw a fit. "Now look what you've done, Loose Lips. You spilled the beans. We aren't supposed to say anything." "I spilled the beans," Goose Bubbler resorted. "You're the one who couldn't keep his mouth shut." Before they could go on, Cackle held up her hand. "Silence!" she commanded. Then she gave me a smile that was sweeter than honey and faker than counterfeit money. "The quest for paradise," she crooned. "The heart of happiness. Very interesting. I knew we had to get out of there fast. Your Majesty, will you grant me permission to travel through the land of the ogres with my Heart Finders Club?" I asked nicely. Cackle nodded. "I'll need a feather," she said. She plucked a feather from an owl who was locked in a cage. At that moment, another crystal key bonked me on the head. Ouch! The owl and I cried out together. "Silence!" Cackle shrieked. She dipped the owl's feather in ink and began to write on a scroll. It wrote, I, Cackle, the Queen of Witches, authorize the Heartbinders Club to travel through the land of the ogres. While Cackle was busy writing, I spoke quietly with the owl prisoner. It seemed she'd been locked out for 10 long years. What could I do? I had to help her. Secretly, I opened her cage. My paws were trembling. I didn't want to think about what Cackle would do if she caught me. The owl flapped her wings. Then she took off for her home, in the howling owl woods. "Thank you," she called softly. "I'll never forget you." As Cackle was stamping the scroll with wax, I found another crystal key. Strange. I was starting to think I should have brought a large keychain with me. I couldn't wait to leave. Did I mention the witches really frightened me? As we were leaving, Cackle whispered something to the king of the black bats. I'm guessing she wasn't asking him for the time, because her smile was pure evil, a very evil smile. As soon as we left Cackle, we went searching for the dragon of the rainbow. We should never have abandoned him, Oscar sobbed. When we reached the smelly, spotty stench swamp, Boils yelled, "Here he is!" "We found him!" Goose Bubbler shouted. Snowy Dawn didn't say a word, but she rushed to his side. The dragon had his eyes closed, but his chest lifted and fell slowly. I was relieved he was alive, but he didn't look good. We had to do something to help him. "What can we do?" I asked worriedly. As I patted the dragon of the rainbow's side, I discovered another key on the ground. I was getting so used to finding keys, I didn't even blink. I just shoved it into my pocket. The dragon opened his eyes and whispered, "You must go into the howling woods and find the witches there. They will have the antidote that you need to save me." I was confused. Antidote? Howling owl woods? They had made the poison arrow that had hit the dragon of the rainbow. Only they had the antidote, the medicine that would cancel out the poison. I gulped. Witches who made poison arrows? I was a nervous wreck, but I couldn't let that dragon die. "I'll do it. I'll find the antidote," I said, hoping no one noticed my shaky voice. "Be careful, Your Excellency," Boils warned. "The 3 witches are gluten for fresh meat. They eat travelers that enter the forest." I opened my eyes wide. "Eat travelers?" I stammered. Oscar patted my paw, and Snowy handed me a note. I was feeling a full-fledged panic attack coming. Tears sprang from my eyes. Oh, how I had gotten myself into such a mess. I climbed Og Hill and entered the Howling Owl's Wood. In the darkness, I could see 1,000 yellow eyes spying on me. The thorny shrubs picked up at my fur. I tripped over branches and twigs. In the distance, I spotted a river of stinky green water. Gross! Didn't they care about the environment here? Right then, I realized that someone was following me. It was the king of the black bats. So that was what Cackle had been whispering about. She had wanted him to follow me. Then I saw something else. I saw the hands of the 3 witches. Soon I reached the edge of the woods. Can you guess what I found? Yes, another crystal key. That made, well, who was counting anyways? I had bigger things to think about, like the large tree stump house right in front of me. It had round windows that looked like eyes and door like a smearing mouth. A sign in front read, "The 3 Witches' Secret Laboratory." Suddenly, I felt a pinch on my neck. How strange. I hadn't seen any mosquitoes. Then I realized I'd been hit by a poison arrow. Ouch! A minute later, I fainted. When I woke up, I was locked in a cage. 3 evil witches screeched, "We knew you would come. The king of the black bats warned us. Have a nice sleep." I stared at the witches. The first one was really short, the second one was really fat, and the third one was really tall. Shorty had fingernails painted black. Porky had fingernails painted purple, and Stalky had fingernails painted green. All 3 had white hair, pointy noses, and lots of hairy warts. Let's just say they wouldn't be winning any beauty contests anytime soon. The three witches approached the cage. They took turns pinching my tail. I let out 3 screams. Ow! Ow! Ouch! The witches giggled. Yum yum, mouse soup tonight, they said. Shortly lit a fire under a copper pot. I'll gather wood from the forest, she said. I'll get peppers for the soup, said Portly. And I'll get potatoes for the side dish, said Stalky. The 3 witches scurried out of the room. At first, I was miffed. Side dish? Wasn't I enough? After all, I'm a pretty decent-sized mouse. Then I smacked my forehead. What was I thinking? I had to escape. I grabbed onto the bars and squeaked, "Help! Get me out of here!" As I was rattling the bars, a crystal key dropped to my feet. Odd. Very odd. Was it the key to the cage? No, it was the wrong side. Suddenly, I heard a tiny voice. Do you need a hand, rodent friend? It was an owl with large yellow eyes. I recognized him immediately. It was the owl I saved from the queen cackle. I told you I would remember you. When I saw that you were in trouble, I had to pay you back for your kindness and generosity, dear rodent. Be back in a second, the owl said. She turned the key in the lock and the cage opened. I was free. Thanks, I owe you my life, I squeaked. The owl flew to the window. Happy to help, she called back, disappearing into the night sky. I grinned. This was my chance. I had to find the poison arrow antidote before the witches returned. I looked around the laboratory. I saw jars filled with dinosaur bones, bat wings, frog eggs, yeti fingernails, and sprigs of basil. There were also vials filled with potions and many books of spells. Finally, I found what I was looking for. 2 bottles. One had a green liquid. It was labeled poison, and there was a picture of an arrow on the bottle. The other bottle was filled with a blue liquid, and it was labeled antidote. Jackpot, I squeaked. Now the dragon of the rainbow could be cured. I was so excited I completely forgot about the witches. Just then, they barged through the door. Cheese niblets! Without a second to spare, I stuck the bottle into my pocket and ran. The witch chased me, but I kept going. The dragon's life was in my paws. I crashed past the thorny bushes and stumbled over rocks. My heart hammered in my chest. My fur was drenched in sweat. Did I mention I'm not much of a sporty mouse? I climbed up Og Hill, past a green stream, and picked up another crystal key along the way. At last, I arrived at the spotty, stench swamp. I was dying for a little rest. A drink, maybe. Even a quick massage. But there was no time. The witches were right on my tail. Quickly, I poured 3 drops of blue liquid into the dragon of the rainbow's mouth. At the first drop, the dragon opened his eyes. At the second drop, his mighty wings. At the third drop, he was up and ready to go. While the dragon of the rainbow was recovering, I noticed something glistening in the dirt. Those crystal keys were turning up everywhere. Were they some sort of clue to a riddle? I was still thinking about the keys when I heard a sound. Rancid Swiss rolls. It was Shortly, Portly, and Stalky. They were fuming. We jumped onto the dragon's back and he took off into the sky. We were safe. As we were flying, Boyles pointed out Stink Bomb Tower, the royal palace of the king of the orcs. It was surrounded by tall spiky trees and swarms of insects. I plucked another key from the branches of the trees. How strange. The dragon landed on a clearing near the tower. We decided that I would enter the tower to look for the map of paradise, while the others would wait outside and stand guard. I approached the tower on shaky paws. Oh, please let me make this an easy find, I thought. A sign in front of the tower read, Stinky Bomb Tower, property of Bold Squash the Org. Do not enter, or I'll make meatballs out of you. I took a deep breath and knocked. After a few moments, I felt a terrible tremor. A woman as tall as 3-story, with greasy hair, a huge nose, and crooked teeth, opened the door. Who's there? She bellowed. Behind her were 2 younger orcs. Unfortunately, the smaller orcs were just as hideous as their mom. Hadn't anyone ever explained basic hygiene to these creatures? Still, there was no time for a lesson. I had to get the map. The orc didn't see me. I slipped quietly into the house right before she slammed the door. "Rotten pranksters," she grumbled. The ogress stomped back into the house. She crossed through the foyer, which was as big as a soccer field. Then she clomped into the enormous kitchen and lit a fire in the fireplace, which was as big as a truck. I was hiding under a cupboard when the door burst open. Holy cheese! The ogre bold squash was in the house. "So tell me, big hubby of mine, how's your big old day?" the ogress asked. "Humph! It was pretty big, old large wife of mine," thundered Bold Squash in his extra-large voice. I began to shiver with fear. Plus, it was freezing in the kitchen. Suddenly, I felt a sneeze coming on. I tried to stop myself, but it didn't work. "Achoo!" "Humph!" yelled the orc. "Who sneezed?" "It was probably the wind, big hubby," the ogress answered. I moved, and the cupboard creaked. "Humph!" yelled the orc. "Who made that creak?" "It was probably just the chair you're sitting in, big hubby," said the ogress. The orc sniffed the air, and an ugly look came over his head. A really ugly face. "Fee, fi, fo, fat! I smell the blood of a nasty rat," he yelled. The ogress sighed. "Oh, big hubby, it's probably the smell of the gigantic soup and extra-large meatballs I made," she said. The orc sniffed the air again and muttered to himself. Then he devoured the gigantic bowl of soup, which was large as a swimming pool slurp. He mopped up the bowl with a loaf of bread and as large as a hot air balloon. He pierced an enormous chunk of cheese with a super-sized fork and looked just like a pitchfork, and spit out the huge rind. Spoo! Then he let out a burp that made the window shake. Finally, he cleaned his huge teeth, using the trunk of a pine tree as a toothpick. Then he chugged down 13 gallons of water in a single cup. Cheese nugget. He was rude. When he finished eating, the orc got up and went to the fireplace. He knelt down by a large trunk. Then he took an enormous golden key from his belt, opened the trunk, and pulled out something. "Look, wife, it's my map of paradise," he cried. The ogress rolled her eyes. I know, it's your most precious possession." "Don't lose it," she commanded. The orc locked the trunk and sniffed the air again. "I still smell a rat," he mumbled. A minute later, he went fast asleep. As soon as I knew that the orc was asleep, I snuck out from my hiding place. I had to get the map. On tippy paws, I crept over the ogre's belly and slid the golden key off his belt. I was almost at the trunk when the orc began to mumble in his sleep. I made it to the trunk and turned the key in the lock. I grabbed the map, but then the heavy lid slammed on my tail. "Youch!" I screeched. "So much for being quiet," the orc sprang from his chair. "Who woke me?" he thundered. Then he saw me. I tried putting on my friendly smile and waved politely. My great aunt Rossley always told me everyone likes a polite mouse. Unfortunately, she had never met the orc. He just flew into a rage. "How dare you enter my house?" he bellowed. "I'll gnaw you down to the last tiny bone." Clutching the map of paradise, I raced for the door. Too bad the orc's steps were so much bigger than mine. "Help!" I squeaked. Was I going to be made into a mouse meatball? But just as the orc was about to block my path, I leaped with all my might through the doorway. With a swish, a golden talon lifted me into the air. "Thanks, dragon," I squeaked, relieved to be back with my friends again. The orc and the ogress shook their fists, but soon they were just two tiny specks in the distance. At last, we were off to find the heart of happiness. We were off on our quest for paradise. The map of paradise. As we were flying, I showed my friends the map of paradise. I could hardly believe I was finally holding it in my paws. "You did it!" Wills yelled. "You got the map! Yippee!" Goose Blubbery honked. Snowy wrote a note. "Hooray for the map of paradise!" Carefully, I unrolled the map and examined the trail in the kingdom of the fairies, continued to the land of the orcs, then on the land of the sweets, then to the land of the toys, then to the land of the comfort, over to the land of gold, and ended in the land of fairy tales. I was shocked. There were so many strange lands on the map. Why didn't I visit all these places on my first trip to the kingdom of fantasy? I asked Boyle. The chameleon giggled, then he chuckled, then he laughed until his whole body turned red. Finally, he answered me. Because the kingdom of fantasy is really, really big. Oh yes, agreed Oscar Roach. The kingdom of fantasy is super gigantic, he said. He's absolutely right, Your Excellency, said Goose Bubbler. It's the biggest kingdom of them all. I was deep into the land when suddenly Bola screamed, "Land! Land!" Right then I caught a whiff of chocolate. We were flying over the land of sweets. It was already sunset when the dragon began his slow descent into the land of sweets. What an amazing place! There were rivers of orange soda, lakes made of fruit juice, and a glacier made of mint slushy. The land was inhabited by little men and women made of cookies. There was a volcano that shot out a blast of melted chocolate, and there was a lake with a graham cracker bowl. On tippy paws, I crept over the ogre's belly and slid the golden key off his belt. I was almost at the trunk when the ogre began to mumble in his sleep. I made it to the trunk and turned the key in the lock. I grabbed the map, but then the heavy lid slammed on my tail. Youch! I screeched. So much for being quiet, the ogre sprang from his chair. Who woke me? He thundered. Then he saw me. I tried putting on my friendly smile and waved politely. My great aunt Rousley always told me everyone likes a polite mouse. Unfortunately, she had never met the ogre. He just flew into a rage. How dare you enter my house? He bellowed. I'll gnaw you down to the last tiny bone. Clutching the map of paradise, I raced for the door. Too bad the ogre's steps were so much bigger than mine. Help! I squeaked. Was I going to be made into a mouse meatball? But just as the ogre was about to block my path, I leaped with all my might through the doorway. With a swish, a golden talon lifted me into the air. Thanks, dragon, I squeaked, relieved to be back with my friends again. The ogre and the ogress shook their fists, but soon they were just two tiny specks in the distance. At last, we were off to find the heart of happiness. We were off on our quest for paradise. The map of paradise. As we were flying, I showed my friends the map of paradise. I could hardly believe I was finally holding it in my paws. You did it! Wills yelled. You got the map! Yippee! Goose Bubbly honked. Snowy wrote a note. Hooray for the map of paradise! Carefully, I unrolled the map and examined the trail in the kingdom of the fairies, continued to the land of the orcs, then on the land of the sweets, then to the land of the toys, then to the land of the comfort, over to the land of gold, and ended in the land of fairy tales. I was shocked. There were so many strange lands on the map. Why didn't I visit all these places on my first trip to the kingdom of fantasy? I asked Boyle. The chameleon giggled, then he chuckled, then he laughed until his whole body turned red. Finally, he answered me. Because the kingdom of fantasy is really, really big. Oh yes, agreed Oscar Roach. The kingdom of fantasy is super gigantic, he said. He's absolutely right, Your Excellency, said Goose Bubbler. It's the biggest kingdom of them all. I was deep into the land when suddenly Bola screamed, Land! Land! Right then I caught a whiff of chocolate. We were flying over the land of sweets. It was already sunset when the dragon began his slow descent into the land of sweets. What an amazing place! There were rivers of orange soda, lakes made of fruit juice, and a glacier made of mint slushy. The land was inhabited by little men and women made of cookies. There was a volcano that shot out a blast of melted chocolate, and there was a lake with a graham cracker bowl. A candy plane soared over popped sugar clouds. The dragon landed in the candy-coated city. We passed by cookie cars and nougat skyscrapers. I wondered if this place had any chocolate cheesy chews. My favorite. Just then, I tripped over something. Was it a gumdrop? A peppermint? A caramel? No, it was another crystal key. A gingerbread man and an edible house. We left the candy-coated city and entered the sponge castle forest. Of course, Boyles was in heaven. There was nothing that Charmeleon loved more than candy. He sucked on lollipop flowers and splashed through the lemonade lake. Look at all the little bubbles, he giggled. Finally, we arrived at Marzipan Village. Boyles ran toward a gingerbread house and began chomping away. I was about to tell him to stop when I noticed another crystal key. How strange. At that moment, a gingerbread man stuck his head out of the window. "Stop eating my house!" he yelled. Boyles licked a crumb from his mouth. "Just one more little taste," he insisted. He chomped it away at the house until he collapsed into a heap. Boyles exclaimed, rubbing his belly. "I think I ate 50 pounds of gingerbread, 300 cookies, 70 lollipops, and at least 2 tons of caramel." He let out a burp. While we waited for Boyles to finish burping, Oscar picked up a heart-shaped candy. He gave it to Snowy. "This is for you," he said. "I hope it will make you happy." Goose Bubba rolled his eyes. "A heart candy? Who wants that? Now I'll tell you what would make a girl happy. How about a nice diamond necklace, or a fancy hat, or a house, or a sports car, or—" she babbled. We checked into a candy hotel. It had a sponge cake bed, a lollipop desk, and a chocolate lamp. What was hanging from the lamp? Another crystal key. The next day, Boyles looked extra green. "Oh, what a stomachache," he moaned. Goose Bubba shook her head. "You ate too many sweets, Lizard Breath. Here, drink the smelly pink stuff. It will make you feel better." "No," he said. Then he started moaning again. "Oh, what a toothache," he cried. Goose Bubba grabbed her tweezers. "You've got a cavity. Let me pull your tooth out," she demanded. "No way," Boyles yelled. As the two were arguing, Oscar and I studied the map of paradise. "Tomorrow we'll need to leave early to reach the royal palace and meet the Queen Chocolatina," he said. The royal palace sat on top of the cookies and cream mountain. Oscar explained that it would be very cold and we would need mountain climbing gear. But when we went to find the gear, we discovered that everything was made of candy. Even the jackets, the boots, and the ropes. We left at dawn to begin the climb up Cookies and Cream Mountain. I dragged myself out of my comfy sponge cake bed and brushed my teeth. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. I felt like I was still half asleep. Then I stepped outside. Holy cheese! It was cold. In 2 minutes, my whiskers were covered in icicles. We began marching through the snow, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. We marched all day long. In the evening, we stopped to sleep. We lit a fire. We melted some of the cookies and cream ice to drink. I must say, I felt like a real mountain climber. Before I went to bed, I brushed my teeth with the last drop of water from my canteen. Even mountain climbers need bright lights. Then I found another crystal key. Good thing I had deep pockets, because I had collected enough keys to open my own key shop. The next day, we continued climbing Cookies and Cream Mountain. It was getting colder, and I could tell you everyone was exhausted. Forget the Heart Finders Club. We looked more like the Half-Frozen Club. I have an idea," I said. "How about we have a contest on who can tell the funniest joke?" Everyone rolled on the ground. Then we laughed so hard. Well, everyone except Princess Snowy. She just stared into space. "That one has no sense of humor," Goose Bubba observed. But Oscar defended her. "She'll come around," he said confidently. She just needs a little more time." "Now who's next?" Boyles jumped up. Me, he shouted, and so he began. Why didn't the lobster share his plankton with his dad? Because he was a little shellfish. Everyone applauded. Good one, Boils, we cried. Next it was Goose Bubbler's turn. A mother snake brought a gift for her son's birthday. The son was so thrilled he hissed, Mommy, help me open it. I'm crawling out of my skin with excitement. We all chuckled at that. When it was my turn, I asked, Does anyone know this one? What did the banana say to the judge? I'll be sure to win my case on an appeal. Everyone was giggling so much that the Dragon of Rainbow also wanted to take part in the contest. He even had 2 silly jokes to share. What did one raspberry say to the other on Valentine's Day? I love you very much. What did one leaf say to the other? See you next fall. Boys were laughing so much he began rolling around in the snow. Those jokes were so funny, he shrieked. He laughed so hard he was turning blue. Then he rolled right off the cliff. Cheese niblets! I looked over the cliff and yelled, Boils! But there was no answer. We have to get him, Oscar cried. Goose Bubbler just snorted. He should have been more careful. Who rolls around near the edge of a cliff? Does he have any sense? I always say, but I wasn't listening. I was scared out of my fur, but I knew I had to do what was right. With shaky paws, I tied a rope around my middle. Carefully, my friends lowered me down the cliff. On my way down, I picked up another crystal key. Strange how those keys showed up during the oddest times. But now my whiskers were shaking with fright. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a scaredy mouse. Well, okay, I'm not a bit of a scaredy mouse. I'm a complete scaredy mouse. In fact, sometimes I'm afraid of my own shadow. But even though I was scared, I had to help Boils. All of a sudden, I heard a loud creak. Hurry, Geronimo, Oscar warned. The hole was caving in. Finally, I reached the bottom. I tied Boils to the rope and yelled to the others to pull him up. After the chameleon was safe, it was my turn to climb. The walls around the hole continued to creak. I climbed with every bit of strength I had left in me. I jumped out just as the ice was closing up the hole. Made it by a whisker. What a fabulous ending, as I gave Boils a big hug. And yet I found another key. At last, we spied the royal palace, Chocolate Castle. We followed a peanut brittle path right up to the castle, which was decorated with candy. All around the castle was a moat filled with golden liquid. I slipped and soon discovered that the moat was filled with sticky honey. A guard made of cookie poked his head out of a window. When he saw us, he lowered the chocolate drawbridge. A row of guards exclaimed, Who are you? I climbed out of the moat. Honey dripped out of my ears. I wiped my glasses and noticed that a crystal key was stuck to one lens. I knocked on the licorice door. My name is Geronimo Stilton, and I'm here with the Heart Finders Club, and I'd like to meet the Queen of Sweets. 2 guards appeared and led us inside. I see you took a swim in our moat, one chuckled. Pretty clever, eh? We use it to keep the thieves away. I didn't think I was very clever, considering I wasn't a thief. I was a gooey mess. Oh, what I would have given for a nice hot bath with cheddar-scented bubbles. The guards insisted that the dragon stay on the balcony. The last time he'd visited the castle, his fire breath had melted the chocolate hall. The rest of us followed through to a room with a fountain that squirted pink syrup. And what was floating inside the mountain? Another crystal key. I put it into my pocket before anyone noticed. Then I bowed before Queen Chocolata. Excuse me, your sweetness. Do you know where I can find the heart of happiness? I asked. The queen thought for a minute. I will tell you, but first you must pass the test, she said at last. The queen licked her lips. I must warn you, it is a very difficult test. You must make me a sweet that I have never tasted before. But be careful, because I know all the sweets in the world, she said. I chewed my whiskers. Don't get me wrong, I love sweets as much as the next mouse, but I can't make them. Then I thought of one dessert I could make. It's called Cheesy Full Cake, and it was created in New Mouse City. I whipped up a cake and presented it to Chocolatina. The whole court watched as she tasted it. I felt faint. What if she didn't like it? Suddenly the queen stood up, then she threw the cake into the face of the royal cook. "Why don't you ever make this cake from Mouse Island?" she screeched. "Why? Why? Why?" But I didn't even know this Mouse Island even existed," the cook stuttered. I felt awful. I didn't want the cook to get in trouble. I explained to the queen that the recipe was a secret known only to mice. The queen forgave the royal cook, but from now on you must make me this cake every day, she ordered. I thought about telling the queen she couldn't eat cheesy full cake every day, because it was loaded with calories, but I didn't want her screeching, so I kept quiet. Meanwhile, the cook was so upset he ran to the kitchen. "How will I do it?" he sobbed. "I wrote out the recipe. This cheesy cake before. Together we made the cake. I told him not to worry." The cook was thrilled. While we were baking, I found another key. It's a good thing we didn't bake it into the cake. After I was sure the royal cook knew the cheesy full cake recipe, I went back to talk to the queen. Now that I had passed the test, Chocolatina had promised she would tell me what she knew about the heart of happiness. I was feeling excited. Could the heart of happiness be right here in the land of sweets? "It's not here," the queen said a minute later, "but you will stay here and cook me forever." I blinked. The queen didn't seem to understand a few things. 1. I wasn't a cook. 2. I wasn't a cook. And 3. I wasn't a cook. The queen knew I wasn't thrilled about staying, so she led me to a secret room with an armor-plated door. "Welcome to the chocolate room," she announced. She flung open the door. Inside was the most fabulous sight. The room was crammed with chocolate. Creamy milk chocolate, tart bittersweet chocolate, and the rich dark chocolate filled the room. The queen pointed to a huge mountain of gold chocolate bars. "This is chocolate treasure. It is made up of 1,000 premium chocolates covered in gold foil. If you stay here with me, I will give it all to you," she said. Oh no, I was in chocolate heaven. How did the queen know that chocolate was my weakness? Luckily for me, I didn't have to make a decision. That's because right then, the ground began to tremble. Everyone started screaming. "The Cocoa volcano!" the queen shouted. "It's awake!" We ran out to the castle and jumped onto the dragon just as the river of melted chocolate spurted out of the volcano. "Come back," Chocolatina called, but we were already headed towards the land of toys. When we landed in the land of toys, I wish I had a pair of sunglasses. It was so bright and colorful. There were neon green beach balls, purple building blocks, and a row of dolls in pink and blue dresses who lived in a yellow doll house. Boils jumped onto a toy train. "Yippee!" he shrieked. Oscar played with a wind-up car, and Goose Blubber tested a remote-controlled motorboat. Model airplanes did loopy-loops under white clouds. Then something fell out of one plane. Was it a note? Was it the pilot? No, it was just another crystal key. As we entered the land of toys, I found a trail of what looks like wooden tears. How strange. The trail of tears led to a farm inside the barn. A rocking horse was bawling his eyes out. "Why are you crying?" I asked, pocketing a crystal key I spotted in the barn. "Oh, my story is a real tearjerker," the horse began. "My name is Lightning. Many years ago, toys were not electric or made of plastic. Children played with cloth dolls, tin trains, and wooden rocking horses, just like me. I belonged to a boy named Peter. He never got tired of playing with me. Together we would pretend I was galloping as fast as the wind. I loved Peter very much. But eventually, Peter got too big to play with me. His mom stuck me in the attic with lots of old furniture. One day, Peter's dad came up to the attic. As he was moving some things, he accidentally broke my rocker, and suddenly, I couldn't rock anymore. Then Peter's family moved. They didn't want to take all their old furniture to their new house, so they threw it in the garbage. Even me. I dragged myself to this toy farm, which is where I've been ever since. Now I'm just an old piece of wood, the horse finished sadly. I looked at Lightning. I figured with a little work, we could make him look 10 years younger. "Lightning, it's a makeover time," I squeaked. My friends and I got to work. We fixed Lightning's rocker, painted his saddle, and polished his mane and tail. The horse was so happy he couldn't speak. He was crying no more. We left the farm and headed to our next stop, Toy Castle. 2 soldiers blocked our path. "My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton," I said. "I wish to speak with the king." The guards took us to the royal hall. As I bowed down, King the box, I found another crystal key and slipped it into my pocket. "Your Majesty, do you know where I can find the heart of happiness?" I asked. The king stared at me. Then he picked a magnifying glass. "What a lovely stuffed animal," he observed. "Your Majesty, I'm not a stuffed animal." I squeaked, "My name is Geronimo Stilton." The king blinked. "A stuffed Stilton? Never heard of that brand," he said. "But the quality is excellent. I don't even see the stitching." Of course he's super competitive, so he threw a fit when I bit him. But that's another story. "Sure," I told the king. The king showed me an enormous chessboard. My eyes opened wide. All the pieces were alive. I will use the white pieces. You will use the black ones. King in the box. Then the game began. A chess game with living pieces. In 1454, 2 noblemen fell in love with the beautiful daughter of Lord Martosita, a city in Venezia, region of Italy. Since all types of duels were forbidden, the 2 challenged each other to a game of chess. The event took place in the town square, and the noblemen used living pieces. In 1954, the mayor of the city paved the square to form a chessboard that represented the famous challenge. Since then, a game of human chess is played every 2 years in Marostista. King in the box pulled out a timer. "You have 40 minutes to make your move. If time runs out, you lose your turn," he said. That seemed easy, but when I started to make my move, the king tapped me on the back and offered me a cup of tea. "No, thank you," I responded, turning back to the board. Then I noticed something funny. One of my paws were missing. "How about some candy?" the king offered. "No, thank you," I repeated, turning back to the game. Now one of my knights was missing. "Pillow?" the king asked, shoving a feather pillow in my snout. When I pushed it aside, I saw that one of my bishops were missing. "No fear," I spluttered. Then I found a crystal key. Maybe it would bring me good luck. I studied the chessboard carefully. Whirling whiskers! The knight might have been cheating, but I had won anyway. "Checkmate!" I exclaimed with satisfaction. "Now tell me, your majesty, where is the heart of happiness?" The king flew into a rage. "How dare you checkmate me? I am supposed to be the winner," he shrieked. He shook his fist into the air. Talk about a sore loser. He reminded me of how my cousin Trap was when he was little. We both had entered a sandcastle contest, and I won. Trap was so jealous, he smashed my castle to pieces. "It's only a game," I said, but the king was about to explode. I thought about teaching him some relaxation exercises, but I didn't get a chance. Right then the chess pieces stepped forward. "He won fair and square," they told the king. They explained that the heart of happiness was not in the land of toys. Then they held the king off so we could make our escape. We flew to the kingdom of comfort. Everything in the kingdom was made of something soft, like cotton or flannel or stuffing. The house was sewn, and even the cars were stuffed. We met fabric dolls who wore pajamas and slippers. "The alarm clocks don't work here, so you can sleep all day," Wills explained. As I was looking around, I found a crystal key. Maybe it would open up one of the houses I could use as a bed. I was getting sleepy. A man dressed in flannel pajamas offered me a mug of hot chamomile tea. "It's so you can sleep better," he said. I thanked him and climbed onto a soft hill of pillows. As I sipped the tea, my eyes closed. I slept and slept and slept. It was a total snore fest. Finally, I woke up. I must say, I could get used to the kingdom of comfort. For one thing, I hate alarm clocks. Did I mention that I'm not a morning mouse? And for another, everything was so soft, I couldn't hurt myself. Did I mention that I'm a bit of a klutz? Still, after a while, even I started to get bored, so we got on the dragon and headed for the land of gold. When we landed, we saw that everything was sparkling. Now I really needed those sunglasses. It was so bright. Note to self: make appointment with Dr. Sore Eyes upon return to New Mouse City. I shielded my eyes as I checked out the map. Just as I thought, we were in a place called the All Gold Woods. And boy, was it all gold. The trees were gold, the leaves were gold, the grass was gold, the fruit was gold, and even the flowers were gold. I noticed a bird's nest made of gold in the trees, and then there was a stream flowing with golden water. The wind blew the leaves on the trees, making them ring like 1,000 tinkling bells. It sounded like an enormous wind chime. Wow, I didn't know this land really existed. I thought it was only a legend, Boyles commented. Have you ever seen such a beautiful sight? Goose Blah Blah asked, who doesn't love gold? But Oscar just scratched his head. Why isn't there anyone around? He asked. We haven't seen one frog, one squirrel, one bird, or even one insect. I nodded. Oscar was right. There was something strange about this place. Something really strange. We continued down a path of golden, then led to a sparkling palace. Along the way, we passed trees glittering with emeralds and diamonds. Goose Blah Blah was in heaven. Jewels, jewels, jewels. Every girl needs jewels, she sang. Just then one of the jewels fell out of a tree and hit me on the snout. Ow! I complained. Then I saw that it wasn't a jewel that hit me. It was another crystal key. Soon we reached Sparkle Palace. I knocked, but no one answered. I turned the door golden handle and went in. We were greeted by a golden statue. Welcome to the land of gold. I am Queen Dorothy. Why are you here? She said in a robotic voice. I felt silly talking to a statue, but what could I do? I introduced myself and said we were searching for the heart of happiness. Sorry, Charlie, the statue replied. It's not here. I was so disappointed I didn't even mind that the Queen had called me the wrong name. I headed glumly for the door, absent-mindedly picking up another crystal key I found on the floor. Wait, the Queen called. Why don't you stay the night? Why not? I thought. All the searching was really wearing me out. Suddenly, I heard something growling. I cringed. It was a robotic guard dog. Was he vicious? Would he have to pull out his batteries? Then I noticed Oscar holding his mouth. I'm hungry, he said, turning red. We went to the kitchen. We saw a gold table, plates, glasses, and another crystal key. A minute later, I heard more growling this time. It was coming from me. I spotted a plate of spaghetti and a pizza and a huge cake. Let's eat, I said. I bit into the pizza and screamed. It was made of jewels. The tomato was rubies, the olives were emeralds, and the mozzarella was made of diamonds. Goose Bubbler tried the spaghetti, but it was made of pure silver. The cake was made of pearls, and a stream of diamonds poured out of the facet. We decided to go to bed, but upstairs my golden bed was as hard as a rock. And my gold blanket was cold. I rolled over and felt something poke me in the back. Was it a golden bed spring? No, it was just another crystal key. I looked at the key. It was nice to have all these keys. But what about the heart of happiness? Would we ever find it? That night I tried everything I could to help me fall asleep. I counted sheep. I counted cheese puffs. I counted sheep eating cheese puffs. But nothing worked. In the morning I noticed that everything was looking tired, and everyone was also tired. What a night. We said goodbye to the Queen. She told us we could take anything we liked as a parting gift. So Goose Bubbler packed the trunk with precious stones. Boils filled a bag with golden coins. "We're rich!" they yelled together. They attached their treasure to the dragon with a rope. I was about to protest when I spotted something in the sand. Was it a diamond? No, it was another crystal key. We travelled all day, but towards evening a terrible storm blew in. The dragon flapped his wings furiously, but the extra baggage weighed him down. We were losing altitude by the minute. "We have to get rid of the trunk and the bag of gold before it's too late," I yelled. Quickly, I untied the rope. Precious stones and golden coins spilled out, then vanished from sight. The dragon soared higher. We were safe. But Boils and Goose Bubbler were heartbroken. "All that gold," Boils sobbed. "I was going to be the richest chameleon on the block." Goose Bubbler nodded. "All those jewels," she moaned. "I could have worn a different gemstone every day of the year." While Boils and Goose Bubbler complained, the dragon landed on top of a rocky peak so we could rest. It was a beautiful night. The sky was a deep velvety blue, and the moon hung in the air like a precious slice of cheese. Oscar lay on his back, admiring the millions of stars floating peacefully overhead. "Ah, look at that view," he sighed. "Now that is worth all the money in the world." "But I love money," Boils insisted. "Oh, Boils, money can't buy everything," Oscar explained. "You can't buy a pound of love, or a quart of friendship, or a yard of happiness," Boils grinned. "Well, at least you can buy candy," he said, pulling out a gold coin from his armpit. "Got anything, Sir Knight?" I gave Boils his candy. Then I studied the map. Holy cheese! We had reached the land of fairy tales. The next morning we landed between the Little Mermaid Sea and the houses of 3 little pigs. I was so excited. Did I mention I love fairy tales? I couldn't believe we were walking right into some of my favorite storybook places. We passed the pond of the Ugly Duckling and the Little Red Riding Hood woods. We had to drag Boils away from the witch's candy-covered house in Hansel and Gretel forest. And Goose Bubbler almost picked at a poisoned apple at the house of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Oscar made friends with a golden fish in Pinocchio's village, and I talked to an enchanted blue bird in Sleeping Beauty's forest. Still, there was no sign of the heart of happiness. Then Boils had an idea. "Let's climb Talking Book Peak. That book knows everything. It can tell us where to find the heart of happiness," he suggested. By the light of the moon, we began our climb. The path was formed of rocks that were sculpted to look like letters of the alphabet. "I will talk to the talking book," Goose Bubbler said. "You," snorted Boils. "It won't want to talk to a chatterbox like you." "So Geronimo will talk to the book," Oscar declared. "Me? Talk to a book?" I guess it made sense. Everyone knows I love books. I love reading them. I love writing them. I even love looking at them. We climbed up the stone letters to the talking book. It was closed. "Good evening, Mr. Book," I squeaked, feeling embarrassed. "May I ask you a few questions?" At first, nothing happened. Then the pages of the book began to turn. Fairy, witches, and elves fluttered out. As I watched in amazement, something struck me in the snout. It was another crystal key. Was the book trying to tell me something? Suddenly, the talking book asked in a deep voice, "What is your question?" I was so scared. I jumped 50 feet in the air. Okay, maybe not 50 feet. Maybe 20 or 10. Oh well. You get the picture. I was terrified. I introduced myself and explained about the heart of happiness. The book snapped shut. Was it something I said? A second later, the book said, "I will give you this information, but only if you pass a test." My whiskers shivered. A test? Would I need a number 2 pencil? Would I lose points for paw printing? The talking book interrupted my thoughts. "You must tell me a fable about something important," he said. I felt a panic attack coming on. Then I remembered a fable my Aunt Sweetfur had told me when I was a little mouseling. One day, in the land of fairy tales, a huge storm broke out. It rained and rained and rained. When the rain stopped, the sun came out, a marvelous rainbow made up of 7 different colors that filled the sky. The colors were red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo, and violet. "I am the most important color," said Red. "I color the most beautiful flowers, the sweetest fruits, and the tastiest vegetables." "No way," Orange responded. "I am the color that is the most important. Everyone knows the juiciest fruits are my color." "Who cares about fruits?" snorted Yellow. "I am the most important color. I am the color of the sun." "I am the most important," Green insisted. "I color all the plants on Earth." "Big deal," boomed Blue. "I am the color of the sky and the sea. That's why I'm more important." "Oh yeah," Indigo protested. "Without me, you wouldn't see the stars at night. Now that's important." "I'll tell you who's the most important." "Me!" Violet shrieked. "I hold up the rest of you." The colors argued and argued. Suddenly, Red split away from the group. "I'm leaving," Red shouted. "I'm better off without all of you." All the colors left, and there was nothing remaining of the rainbow, and the sky was empty. But soon Red, Orange, Yellow, Green, Blue, Indigo, and Violet realized that being alone wasn't fun anymore. There was no one to talk to. There was no one to laugh with. Then one day, all the colors ran into each other. Red said, "I'm sorry. I said I was the most important. We're all important." Then he held out his hand to Orange. Orange grabbed it and smiled. Then he reached out his hand to Yellow, who reached out to Green, who reached out to Blue, who reached out to Indigo, who reached out to Violet. As if by magic, a beautiful rainbow formed in the sky. At last, all the 7 colors of the rainbow were shining again in peace and harmony. "I must say, we look great when we all work together," he said. And this time no one disagreed. When I finished my story, I sat chewing my whiskers. Had I passed the test? I know the story I told was sort of sweet and sappy. Well, okay. It wasn't just sort of sweet. It was the kind of story that would give a mouse a toothache. But it was all I had. The talking book began to leaf through his pages. Then he said, "Nice story, Geronimo. You have passed my test, so I will give you all the information you seek." I was thrilled. This was it. At last, we would find out where the heart of happiness was hiding. But then the talking book announced, the heart of happiness could not be found in the land of fairy tales. I was crushed. If the heart of happiness wasn't in the land of fairy tales, then we were done. There were no more lands left to explore. We would have to go back to the Queen of the Fairies empty-handed. We boarded the Dragon of the Rainbow with heavy hearts. That evening, we stopped to rest. Oscar built a fire, pitched a tent, and made some delicious hot chocolate. As I was sipping it, I found another crystal key. How strange. Then Oscar played his violin. I was impressed. For a cockroach, Oscar was one well-rounded bug. We sang songs and chatted late onto the night. It seemed as if no one wanted to go to sleep. I guess we all knew that our adventure would soon be over. I looked around at all my friends in the Heartfinders Club. The dragon lounged quietly on a rock, gazing up at the stars. Goose Bubbler was talking Snowy Dawn's ear off. Poor thing, though it was almost looking like the princess was smiling. Oscar was gathering soft leaves for us to sleep on, and Boyles was on his 10th cup of hot cocoa. It was nice to see everyone in the Heartfinders Club getting so good and getting along with each other. I leaned back into the crook of a tree, enjoying the peaceful night. Then Oscar suggested we play a game of charades. "I'll go first," Goosebubble insisted. "Hey, what about me?" Boils complained. "Why can't I go first?" Before long, the two were arguing away. I sighed. Yes, nothing like a calm, peaceful night. The next morning, we left at dawn. We flew until we reached the kingdom of fairies. As long as the dragon of rainbows descended towards the crystal landing pad, I found another crystal key. I tried to look on the bright side, though I was disappointed that I hadn't found the heart of happiness. At least I had found something. I put my paw into my pocket and jingled all the crystal keys I had picked up during the trip. The night before, sitting under the tree, I had counted them. I had found 32 crystal keys. What were they for? Why did they seem to appear everywhere I went? Were they part of a bigger riddle? I stared up at the star-filled sky and wondered if I would ever learn the answers to my question. At that moment, I spotted a shooting star. It zipped across the sky, lighting up the night. I made a wish. Why not? I had nothing to lose. "Please lead me to the heart of happiness," I whispered. The star fell straight down. Holy cheese! It landed right next to us, on the great crystal oak in the garden of fairies. "Let's follow it," I yelled to my friends. As we were racing through the garden, I nearly tripped over another key. Make that 33 crystal keys! The crystal garden shimmered in the moonlight. We passed a crystal pond with crystal lily pads and tiny crystal fish. There were crystal rose bushes, crystal benches, a crystal wishing well, and even a crystal water fountain. But when I reached the crystal oak tree, I gasped. There between its roots was a small door with 33 crystal locks. So that was what those 33 crystal keys were. With trembling paws, I took the keys and opened the locks one by one. Then, with the door half open, I poked my head and fell. Down, down, down I tumbled into the darkness. I was on some kind of slippery slide. It felt like one of those scary roller coaster rides at Museland amusement park. Killer cat claws! I hate roller coasters. Help! I yelled at the top of my lungs. Just then I hit bottom. Brrr. It was so cold. I looked around, straining to see in the dark. I was in a large, spooky cave. My heart began to pound under my fur. Did I mention I'm not the bravest mouse on the block? I'm afraid of spiders and snakes, and those wind-up chattering plastic teeth. And I'm afraid of ghosts and cats in the night. I chewed on my paw nails. Oh, how did I get into such a mess? I was a good mouse, I said, "Please and thank you," and ate my vegetables, well, except for the time my cousin Trap tried to get me to eat pickled Brussels sprouts. Yuck! The smell was enough to kill my whiskers. The night dragged on and on. I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I was too afraid. Do you know what I learned while I was stuck in that cave? I learned that even scaredy mice fall asleep. In the morning, my own snoring woke me up. At first, I was embarrassed, but then I remembered I was alone in a dark, spooky cave. I stood up and stretched. I felt a little better, so I did a few jumping jacks. I felt a little better, so I did a few push-ups. I felt a little better, so I jogged in place. Then I stubbed my toe. Youch! I took off my glasses so I could cry freely. At that moment, a bright ray of sunlight lit up in the cave. The cave was made of crystal. Now I felt a whole lot better. The sun sparkled on the water of a large spring in the center of a cave. A waterfall flowed into the spring, and a beautiful rainbow hung into the air. I moved closer to the spring and peered into the water. Cheese niblets! There, at the bottom of the spring, were 7 hearts. One was gold, one was silver, one was amber, one was ruby, one was sapphire, one was emerald, and one was transparent crystal. Could one of them be the heart of happiness? And how would I know which one? Then I saw words carved at the bottom of the spring. 7 hearts you will see. but only one will bring you glee. So choose wisely, for if you're wrong, your happiness will soon be gone. I was a wreck. Which heart was I supposed to choose? The gold one shone like the sun, but the silver sparkled like the moon. Or maybe I was supposed to take the amber one, or the ruby one, or the sapphire, emerald, or crystal one. It was all so confusing. I'm not always the best at making decisions. Sometimes I have trouble picking out which pair of underwear to put on. My paws shook as I reached for the 7 glittering hearts. Each one seemed to be calling to me in a little squeaky voice. Take me, take me. Which one should I choose? Slimy Swiss rolls. Now how was I hearing voices? I felt my forehead to make sure I wasn't coming down with something. What if I fainted? There was no one around to save me. Snap out of it, Geronimo, I scolded myself. You're here to choose a heart for the queen of the fairies. That got me thinking about the queen. Unlike some of the other kings and queens, we had met the queen of fairies, who was good and kind. Her castle wasn't made of gold or silver or some other precious stone. She wasn't into money or expensive things. She didn't wear fancy ball gowns or drive a luxurious car. She didn't drape herself in jewels or insist on gourmet meals. Her castle was made of crystals, not diamonds. Crystal! That was it! I was so excited I fell into the water. At least I know what to do. I reached out my paw and grabbed the crystal key. As I held it, a ray of light struck the heart, and the heart reflected the 7 colors of the rainbow. This is the heart of happiness, I said to myself. I couldn't wait to present the heart of happiness to the queen. There was only one little problem. I was stuck in a creepy cave with no way out. What if I never got out? Headlines flashed before my eyes. Publisher perishes in Crystal Cave. Stilton's skeleton found in Fantasyland. Just then I spotted 9 riddles, etched into the crystal above my head. It seemed that I had to solve the riddle to find a secret exit. Could I do it? These were the riddles. The exit to the cave is close to you. A see-through wall separates you from it. A wall that is clean and clear, but if you wish to find your way out, you must solve the riddles that you hear. The first letter of each answer will speed you on your way, so start solving these riddles before you're old and grey. Riddle 1. If you drop a blue hat into the Red Sea, what does it become? Riddle 2. What is the largest ant in the world? Riddle 3. What can you serve but not eat? Riddle 4. What city has no people? Riddle 5. What is round and never has an end to it? Riddle 6. What do you get when you cross a snowman with a wolf? Riddle 7. What bet can you never win? Riddle 8. What building has the most stories? And finally, Riddle 9. What is something you can't eat for dinner? I racked my brain and finally solved all the riddles. The beginning letters of the 9 answers spelled out the word waterfall. That's it, I squeaked. The exit of the cave is the waterfall. I poked my head through the see-through wall of water. It was just as I'd suspected. On the other side of the waterfall was a crystal staircase. I was so happy I could have danced up the crystal staircase. Too bad it was so long and steep and slippery. Cheese niblet! Would I make it? I kept my eyes glued to the sunny sky above me. After about 1,000,000,000 years, I made it to the top. My head popped out of the crystal well. Phew! I was exhausted. I felt like I had just done the stairmaster for 2 days. I needed a cold drink, a smack, and a long nap. But at that moment, an evil voice shrieked, "Give me the heart!" The dragon of darkness soared overhead with someone on its back. Rat-munching rattlesnakes! It was the cackle, the queen of the witches. The dragon landed in the crystal garden. Thinking fast, I threw the heart into the crystal pond. It would be safe there. The queen jumped off the dragon's back. "I know that you found the heart of happiness. Give it to me," she yelled. I tried to stay calm, but I was shaking inside. "Have you been yelled at by a witch?" "Let me tell you, it can make your fur stand on end." "I'm sorry I don't have the heart," I said, putting up my bravest face. Cackle stamped her foot and waved her arms in the air. "Ridiculous, Mouse! You must think I was born yesterday. I know you have it. Now give it to me, so I can crush it to bits," she demanded. The queen ranted about how much she hated happiness. "Happy people always smile and laugh, do nice things for others. It's disgusting." "What's wrong with sadness?" she complained. "Ever hear the saying, crying is good for you? In my land, everyone cries every day. It's dreary and dark and perfectly miserable." Yikes, the queen of witches was a little crazy. That's right, Cackle was cuckoo. Now she stared deep into my eyes. "Enough stalling, Mouse. Give me the heart of happiness, or the dragon of darkness will snap you up for a snack," she threatened. Suddenly, my friends arrived. Now, if I could just get the dragon of darkness to stop breathing down my neck. I wondered if he had brushed his teeth in the past century. Oscar yelled, "Do you have the heart of happiness?" When the queen turned, I pointed to the pond. Then I said, "No!" Oscar nodded. He understood that I had hidden the heart in the pond. The queen of the witches grew furious. "I've had it with the silly games," she screeched. She signaled the dragon. Before I could squeak, he grabbed me with the razor-sharp talons and took off. Higher and higher. We flew until my friends were just tiny spots down below. Rotten Swiss rolls! Could this get any worse? 2 minutes later, the dragon let go, and I plunged headfirst towards the ground. "Help!" I squeaked, as the ground raced towards me at an alarming rate. Oh, what a way to go! I closed my eyes, so I wouldn't have to see myself getting flattened like a pancake. Then a miracle happened. Something broke my fall. I opened my eyes. I was sitting on the back of a white unicorn with shimmering rainbow-colored wings. "Wow," I said. "Thanks for saving my life." The unicorn smiled and shook his long mane. "No problemo," he neighed. "My name is Rocket." As we flew back towards my friends, Rocket told me about himself. I was impressed. Rocket was a real hero. He had saved Blossom, and now he had saved me. He was sort of like a policeman or a firefighter. Well, a policeman or a firefighter with wings. I wanted to reward him, but it wasn't like I had a spare pair of wings in my pocket. Then I remembered something. I did have candy, I offered. Rocket gobbled it up. Rocket approached the Garden of Fairies, where my friends were waiting for me. I spotted Cackle climbing back onto her dragon. "It doesn't end here, rodent," she screeched. "We'll meet again." I stared at the dragon as it flew off into the sky. Who knows, I thought. Maybe we would see each other again someday. As soon as Rocket landed, Oscar ran up to me. He was practically jumping out of his shell with excitement. "I've got it! I've got the heart of happiness. After you left, I dove into the pond where you pointed. The heart was right there. I got a little muddy, but I rinsed it off, and now look," he beamed. The heart of crystal shone brightly. I was so relieved. After all we'd been through, it would have been awful to lose the heart. "Hooray, Finders Club!" I squeaked. Everyone cheered, including Rocket. "You're part of our club now, too." I told the unicorn that we were all coming together in a group hug. Suddenly, Snow burst into tears. "Why are you crying?" I asked her. She dried her tears. "I'm crying because I'm so happy to have friends who love me," she explained. Then she finally told us her story. Snowy's story was, her father was the king of a far away and happy land, the kingdom of ice. One day it started to snow, and it snowed for 700 days and 700 nights. Everyone would have died of hunger beneath the snow, but my father had built a huge ship. All of their people, the snow people, boarded the ship in search of a new land where we could live in peace. We'd sailed for days, weeks, and months. Then when we were in the Sea of Dreams, a storm broke out. My father ordered everyone below deck, and he locked the hatches and the portholes. Someone, however, was left outside. Me! I was small, and no one noticed me. No one heard my cries. A wave swept me away, and I fell into the sea of dreams. But two talons grabbed me and saved me. It was the dragon of the rainbow. He brought me back to the kingdom of fairies. Since then, I have been too sad to speak. It was great to finally hear Snowy's story. I gave her a warm hug. We are your special family now, I said to her. Then I told her about my own special family. Not everyone knows it, but Stilton family adopted me when I was a young mouselet and gave me a loving home. I grew up with my sister, Thea, my cousin Trapped, my grandpa, William Shortpaws, and my aunt Sweetfur. Families are formed in all different ways, I told Snowy. The important thing is that you all care about each other. That's what makes a home happy. The best kind of home is a place where you feel loved, I squeaked. And a place with lots of candy, Boils giggled. And a place where you can talk all day, Goosebubble blabbled. And a place where no one screams, Squash that bug, Oscar said. And a place where you can spread your wings, Rocket added. And a place with lots of friends, the Dragon of Rainbow sang. I turned the heart of happiness over in my paws. I was feeling happy and warm. Strangely, the crystal heart felt warm too. For a minute, I felt like a mother hen warming her baby chick. Then a ray of sunlight hit this crystal, causing an explosion of stars. Wow, my friends cried. But I was a little worried. What if the heart of happiness burnt into bits before we made it back? Was I holding a ticking time bomb? Let's go, I squeaked, scampering towards the crystal castle. I didn't stop until I reached the queen. I bowed before her. Here it is, your majesty, I squeaked. Just as you requested, the heart of happiness. I held out the crystal heart. I was feeling extra proud of myself and of all my friends in the Heartfinders Club. After all, we had just battled a hideous ogre, scaled a treacherous mountain, outsmarted a snooty king, and escaped from a terrifying witch, all for the heart of happiness. Thank you, Queen Blossom, said with a smile. Then she turned to one of the fairies in her court and said, Please bring the heart back to the crystal cave. I was in shock. Had the queen lost her marbles? But why would you do that, I whined. It was so hard to find. The important thing is not finding the heart, dear knight, the queen said. The important thing is searching for it. I looked at my friends and thought about our adventure. Blossom was right. Happiness isn't something you can hold. It's something you can feel. It can be found inside you. The queen pulled out an official-looking scroll. I am happy to nominate you Ambassador of Happiness, she proclaimed. It was time to go home. I hugged my friends and climbed back onto the back of the Dragon of the Rainbow. The dragon lifted his mighty wings and lifted into the air. I didn't even let out one squeak. I was pretty good at flying stuff. Still, I never did talk to the dragon about my seatbelt idea. Oh well, maybe next time on my adventure. I was feeling pretty relaxed when suddenly this dragon dipped himself into the end of the swirly rainbow. Rats! What was I saying about feeling relaxed? My whiskers whirled in fright. My heart hammered in my throat. I felt like I was getting sucked into a giant vacuum cleaner. I tried to hang on to the dragon's neck, but my paws were so sweaty, I slipped. Help! I squeaked. Suddenly, I found myself back home. I was in a comfy bed. What was going on? What had happened? I stammered. Just then, my alarm clock rang. It was 7 in the morning. I scratched my head. Then it hit me. It was all just a dream. Yes, my adventure in the kingdom of fantasy and the quest for paradise was only a dream. Then I remembered the 101 plates of spaghetti I had eaten the night before. I rubbed my swollen stomach. The indigestion must have gotten to me. I always have crazy dreams when my stomach is upset. Yuck. I never wanted to see another plate of spaghetti again in my whole life. I stretched my paws, put on my slippers, and shuffled in the bedroom. I couldn't wait to take a nice hot shower. After a long shower, I brushed my teeth and got dressed. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. Same old face, but there was something different about my eyes. They sparkled. For a minute, I thought I had soap bubbles in my eyes, but then I realized why my eyes were sparkling. Did you ever notice that when you're happy, your eyes shine? Well, I was happy. In fact, I couldn't wait to start my day, and that was really strange. But I usually hate the morning. Before I left my house, I said goodbye to my little red fish, Hannibal. He was swimming around and around in a crystal bowl. Have a great day, Hannibal. You're looking super fast today, I squeaked happily. Hannibal brought his face near the edge of the bowl. I couldn't say for sure, but he was actually smiling. I left the house and picked up a newspaper at the newsstand. Bobby the newspaper dealer looked glum, so I told him a few jokes. He started laughing as I squeaked to my favorite diner, the Squeak and Chew. Inside I found the owner, Flip, frowning, but he burned some pancakes. I'll take them, I told Flip, grinning. Just pour on the syrup. Flip grinned back. This happiness thing was kind of fun. After I left the diner, I jumped onto a bus, and an old lady boarded after me. Why is it so crowded? She grumbled. I smiled and gave her my seat. Thank you, Sonny. She was smiling back. At last, I reached my office at the Rodents Gazette. My staff looked tired. How about we order pizza for lunch? I suggested. My treat. Everyone cheered. That night, on my way home, I passed lots of sad-looking rodents. I smiled at everyone. And can you guess what happened? Everyone smiled back. Yes, this happiness thing was just fun. It was contagious.